Federal budget under President Donald Trump shows plans to cut over $130 billion worth of funding, targeting things like food assistance programs. Western Mass News reporter Reagan Lockery spoke with Congressman Richard Neal this morning. She joins us now live in studio with his reaction. Reagan.
Yeah, that's right, Chris. Congressman Neal tells me this is something everyone should be concerned about here in Massachusetts and beyond.
Whether it's health care or nutrition, these are very important staples of American life. The progress that we've made over decades now should not be reversed. America is a land of great bounty, and the idea that you're going to balance the federal budget by cutting nutrition programs is nonsense.
On Friday, how many people in Western Mass now rely on?
Now, meanwhile,
there are about
our own Dave Mattson did speak with the director of programs for the Food Bank of Western Massachusetts, Christina Maxwell, for his most recent episode of Getting Answers, which aired just yesterday. She shared this message.
Those cuts haven't gone through yet, so everything is as it has been. We don't know what the future is going to bring, of course, but for right now, we're carrying on.
We wanted to know what would happen if these cuts did in fact go through. Maxwell explains that about 194,000 households here in Western Massachusetts rely on food assistance programs like SNAP benefits. She tells Western Mass News that if the federal government cuts $134 billion in funding, it would mean about $6.4 billion worth of cuts here in Massachusetts over 10 years. Maxwell says that would result in a 20% cut in daily benefits for SNAP holders. She describes this as potentially devastating, adding that the emergency food system is not equipped to make up for this level of drastic cuts in funding. Now, coming up tonight at 6, we have details on how the community can push back against these proposed cuts and hear more from Congressman Neal on what his office is doing to prevent these potential cuts from going through. Reporting live in studio, Reagan Lockery for Western Mass News.